Namaskar, bienvenidos. Bound together by poetry, Tagore Nazrul Jayanti. On behalf of the Ambassador of India to Mexico, Dr. Pankaj Sharma, and Gurudev Tagore Indian Cultural Center, Mexico City, it is my great pleasure to welcome Nirmal Kanti Bhattacharjee of Niyogi Books, New Delhi, India, to this very important event of the curtain raiser to celebrate the birthdays and Qazi Nazrul Islam. I would also like to welcome my co host, the counselor and head of chancery of the Embassy of Bangladesh, Shahnaz Ranu, to this event. Welcome, Shahnaz.
Thank you so much.
I quote Tagore: I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy. Unquote Tagore. Today we celebrate the cultural confluence between the Embassy of India and the Embassy of Bangladesh. Oh, what a great augury is this! We bring Kobiguru Rabindra Tagore and Qazi Nazrul Islam, the two great sons of the soils of India and Bangladesh, to our friends at Mexico. Celebrating their birthdays, Tagore on May 7th and Qazi Nazrul Islam on 24th May gives us immense pleasure for this joint effort. The 161st anniversary of the birthday of Rabindranath Tagore was observed in India on May 7th after muted celebrations in the last 2 years due to pandemic. We are in a celebratory mood. Tagore was also a visual artist, playwright, novelist, and a composer whose works reshaped Bangla literature and music in the late 19th and early 20th century. Rabindranath Tagore, a Bengali polymath who composed the national anthem of India and won the Nobel Prize for Literature, was a multi talented personality in every sense. He was a Bengali poet, Brahmo Samaj philosopher, visual artist, playwright, novelist, painter, and a composer, reshaped Bengali literature and music as Indian art with contextual modernism in the 19th and 20th century. He was also a cultural reformer who modified Bengali art by rebuffing the strictures that confined it within the spheres of classical Indian forms. Though he was a polymath, his literary works alone are enough to place him in the elitist list of all time greats. Even today, Rabindranath Tagore is often remembered for his poetic songs, which are both spiritual and mercurial. He was one of those great minds ahead of his time, and that is exactly why this meeting with Albert Einstein is considered as a clash between science and spirituality. Tagore was keen in spreading his ideologies to the rest of the world and hence embarked upon a world tour, lecturing in countries like Japan, United States, and some of the Latin American countries. Soon his works were admired by various people from different parts of the world, and he became the first non European to win a Nobel Prize. Apart from Janagana Mana, the national anthem of India, his composition, Amar Shonar Bangla, was adopted as the national anthem of Bangladesh, and the national anthem of Sri Lanka was also inspired by one of his works. And we are so proud that this Indian Cultural Center, named after Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, is doing its might towards contributing towards the Bengali literature and the Indian literature to this part of the world. As we go ahead, and now, however, Tagore's elegant prose and magical poetry has remained unknown outside Bengal but in translation, we read him today. We are indeed much honored to have with us Nirmal Kanti Bhattacharjee of Niyogi Books, New Delhi, a doyen of Tagore studies, who will deliver his scholarly talk at this very ceremonious curtain raiser towards our celebration and commemoration of the birthdays of two great thinkers of writers, Tagore and Nazrul. And we are glad Embassy of India and the Embassy of Bangladesh in Mexico City, in collaboration, will be the host at this momentous event. Welcome, bienvenidos, swagatam. Shanas to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Srimoti Dash. It's really an honor and privilege on part of me to be a part of this August occasion, curtain raising of Rabindra Nazrul Jayanti. As you have said rightly, that we are so proud of our two great poets, Rabindranath Tagore and Nazrul Islam. On behalf of Embassy of Bangladesh in Mexico City and Her Excellency Ambassador Abida Islam, I welcome you all. Good morning, buenos dias, shubho shakal. I quote, I am an instrument of God. The instrument is not unbreakable, but who is there to break God? And yes, Nazrul was the instrument of God who wrote on the wings of lightning with joy and profundity. Kazi Nazrul Islam was one of the famous poets of Bengal of all time and the national poet of Bangladesh. He is well known in Bengal as a Bidrohi Kobi, that means rebel poet, for his undaunting writings, uncompromised ideology against all types of oppressions. Born on 25th May in the year of 1899 in Churulia village, West Bengal, he has seen extreme poverty and discrimination in the society and the colonized Indian subcontinent. His poetry and other literary works used to express strong protest against slavery, communalism, feudalism, and above all, the barbarism of British Raj in India. Nazrul was a poet of secularism when he says, come, brother Hindu, come, Muslim, come, Buddhist, come, Christian. Let us transcend all barriers. Let us forsake forever all smallness, all lies, all selfishness, and let us call brothers as brothers. We shall quarrel no more. Unquote. He emphasized the unity of all sects, religions to face and fight against the British colonialism. Yes, we had a poet in 20th century who was bold enough to declare whatever great or benevolent achievements that are in this world, half of that was by women and the other half by men. And we followed his path, and Bangladesh is now the role model of women empowerment in the world. He was a warrior during First World War. During his army days, Nazrul Islam used to read extensively the poetry, novels of other great personalities like Rabindranath Tagore, Bankim Chandra, Sarat Chandra, and was very much attracted by their writings. In the year 1919, his first prose work, namely Banundoler Attokahini, was published, and soon after that, his first poem Mukti was published in the same year. Soon he became popular for his great poetic verse and songs and dramas and became a true inspiration for us till now. Some of his famous poems include Sanchita, Chakrobak, Sadbhai Champa, Nijor, and many more. Novels like Bandhanhara, Kuhelika. He has also written many short stories and some plays and dramas, which are also very famous even today. Nazrul Islam has also composed nearly 3,000 songs, which are popular as Nazrul Giti. This famous poet passed away on 29th August in the year 1976 in Bangladesh. His writings have enriched our Bengali literature to a great extent, and we owe to our national poet. And we also welcome you all to celebrate this August occasion with us tomorrow as well. Thank you, Dr. Srimoti Dash. We are looking forward to listening to our August speaker.
Thank you, Shahnaz Rano, the consular and the head of the Chancery of the Embassy of Bangladesh, and
Thank
my
you.
greetings to your ambassador. And with this, I just would like to introduce our the doyen of Tagore studies, Nirmal Kanti Bhattacharjee. And with that, we shall invite him to give his video on Tagore and Qazi Nazrul Islam. Just to introduce him to the public, to the people who have logged in from Mexico and other parts of the world, we say that Nirmal Kanti Bhattacharjee, he was born in Silchar, Assam. He was not born in Bengal, and English literature from Guwahati University, and he finished his education from GC College Silchar and in Hyderabad, and he taught English to the Department of Prestigious Encyclopedia of Indian Literature project undertaken by the Sahitya Academy. In 1988, he took charge of Sahitya Academy's Eastern Regional Office at Kolkata as regional secretary, where the nature of his work involved conceptualizing and publishing of books in 5 languages. He is a polyglot and he organizes literary seminars, symposia, translation workshops in the region. During the 90s, Sri Bhattacharjee gradually specialized in Indian and comparative literature and taught a course in the postgraduate department of comparative literature, Jadavpur University, the elite university in India from 1993 to 1997. In 1998, he was appointed director of the National Book Trust, NBT, India, a premier organization under the Department of Higher Education, Government of India, engaged in promotion of books and reading habits. During the term in NBT, he conducted celebration of the Year of the Book declared by the Government of India and served on panels on many national and international bodies. Sri Bhattacharjee rejoined the Sahitya Academy, the elite academic association in India, New Delhi in 2002, and worked as editor, Indian Literature Academy's bi-monthly journal till his retirement from government service in 2007. Immediately after his retirement, he was appointed director of KK Birla Foundation, a very renowned and a very popular foundation in India, a private trust devoted to the cause of art, literature, education. Sri Bhattacharya visited the United States of America, researched in the field of ancient manuscript as an associate fellow at the Bineke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at the Yale University. Then he led the delegation of Indian writers to Moscow during the Festival of India in Russia. He also led a research project titled Towards an Integrated History of the Sark Literature and worked at the British Museum and Indian Office Library under the Indian Council for Cultural Relation ICCR grant. He was also invited by the Tokyo University to speak at the comparative literature advanced courses. He also traveled to different parts of the world like Frankfurt, Budapest, Harare, Laos, Beijing, Cairo. There are so many countries which is the country he has not visited, lecturing on Indian culture, on Indian copyright situation in India. He was associated with many prominent newspapers in India like the Statesman, the Times of India, the Book Review, and the Biblio. He co edited a volume of stories on displacement from Barak Valley, Assam, titled Barbed Wire Friends, and 4 volumes of Best of Indian Literature brought out by the Sahitya Academy. A accomplished translator from Bengali into English and vice versa. His English translation of Rabindra Tagore's Two Sister, Duibun, and the quartet Choturango, Mahashweta Devi's Armenian Chompok Tree, Sunil Gangopadhyay's The Dreadful Beauty. There are many more which he has translated, like U. R. Anantmurthy's short story collection, and he was awarded the Best Translator Award from India by the International Board of Books for the Young, IBBY, and felicitated at King's College, London. Sri Bhattacharya co-edited the web journal Translation Today of Central Institute of Indian Languages, Mysore, and a member of the Program Advisory Committee of the National Translation Mission launched by the Government of India. He has many coffee table books to his credit, and which is on the different aspects of the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the residence of the Honorable President of India. Sri Bhattacharya is currently working as the editorial director of Niyogi Books, a reputed publishing house based in Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, dear loggers from Mexico and some parts of the world, we could not have asked for a better person to talk on Qazi Nazrul Islam and Rabindranath Tagore, but for Mr. Nirmal Kanti Bhattacharya. With this brief introduction, I would say this is brief because he has got a voluminous introduction. And now we will play the video of our event speaker and this curtain raiser, a very important event which will take us to the next phase of the celebration. Nirmal Kanti Bhattacharya for you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's listen to him.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm supposed to speak to you about Rabindra Tagore and Qazi Nazrul Islam. Now, both Tagore and Islam were multifaceted literary giants. To talk about the entire gamut of their creative output is beyond the scope of this limited time span. I would therefore keep myself restricted to their poetry, though lightly touching upon their other achievements too. To begin with, how does one describe Tagore? Poet, playwright, painter, actor, novelist, short story writer, essayist, philosopher, educationist, music composer, internationalist, cultural relativist. Rabindranath Tagore was a many-splendored genius, the like of which one comes across but rarely in history. A man of amazing creative efflorescence, with so many facets to it that people are often confused to decide which one is the most important. He is indeed a miracle of nature, the supreme symbol of Indian Renaissance. However, it can never be overemphasized that Rabindranath Tagore was essentially a poet par excellence. All other sides of his great personality, however brilliant, become subordinate to his main greatness as a poet. If he was a great patriot, it was his poetic genius that made him so. If he was a great philosopher, it was his poetic instinct that made him a philosopher of life's synthesis and harmony. If he was a great educationist, his wonderful theory and practice of education was a direct outcome of his poetic understanding of life. True poetical geniuses comprehend life directly and in its entirety. That is why Tagore could unerringly interpret the utterances of the sages of the Upanishads and of prophets like the Buddha and Zarathustra. Someone once said, Rabindranath is our only saint who has not refused to lead. How could he lead the life of an anchorite hermit when life and the contemplation of life were so rich, both in imagination and experience? He was not for Vairagya. He could bluntly say, Vairagya sadhana mukti shyamar noy, sahasra bandhan maje mahanandamoy, labhiva mukti irshad. Achieving emancipation through renunciation is not my goal. It was this capacity of balancing and harmonizing the different aspects of life that made Rabindranath the poet and votary of life in its entirety. Here is a poet who charts the direction of his country towards where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. Or tells his God, বিপদে মোরে রক্ষা করো এনহে মোর প্রার্থনা বিপদকে যেন না করি আমি ভয়. It's not my prayer that you should protect me in danger. My prayer is that give me courage to face the danger. Had not Tagore himself said, I am able to love my God because he gave me gives me freedom to deny him. Love is the operative word here. It is that turns even denial into a form of acceptance. Tagore was reclusive in boyhood and youth, while he came nearer to people and society in his advanced age. In his early poetry, the cosmic elements predominated, owing to a close and unbroken relationship with nature. The high Himalayas, where his father took him, became the symbol of both remoteness and grandeur, touched by ancient legends such as those of Shiva and Parvati. The dance of Shiva, the story of his snowy locks melting as the stream of the Ganga, appear in Tagore's songs and dramas and are aesthetically rendered in some of his greatest odes and poems. Riverine Bengal filled his Shialda days with the much apostrophized river Padma, which was not only his daily background when he lived in his houseboat, but became his life's companion, his muse and beloved. At night, the stars, not only the Sandhatara, the pole star of his poems, but also the seven hermits of the sky, Saptarshi, looked down upon him across time's distance. They guided and comforted him and shared their secrets and listened to his own. Impersonal situations did arise in his stories, songs, and poems written in this period as parts of a cosmological existence. Not that human emotions were anything but warm and meaningful, but their significance largely depended on man's power to relate himself with the ultimate images of his being. The Krishna legend provided him with many images, both pastoral and sublime. Tagore had strong Vedic and especially Rig Vedic affiliations. The celestial gods and goddesses, which of course had no religious meaning to his monotheistic faith, supplied him with shining images. However, the earlier visionary patterns became less true to him as he grew in age and lived and worked in closer relationship with the societal and human context. Boatmen and boats, the river and the shore, the crossing and the waters changed their meaning, emerging associations, and filled his poetry with variations of theme. W. B. Yeats, the Irish poet, who was largely instrumental in projecting Gitanjali to an international platform, deeply responded to this symbolic imagery of Tagore's poems, which drew from the reservoir of a whole people's consciousness and were yet particularly modern. It is in this strain that Tagore continued publishing poetry collections from Manashi to Sonartori to Bolaka to Gitimallo, culminating in the Gitanjali, which won him the Nobel Prize. However, we must also note that towards his later poems, we find Tagore indulging in a profoundly tragic vision. I will cite here only one poem called Prithvi, the Earth, which was written in 1936, only 5 years before his death. The poet wants this to be his homage to Earth, as he himself prepares to say his last farewell. That corpses of numberless generations of man lie heaped in her dust, that she is both beauty and abundance, as well as terror and famine, both gentle and fierce, ancient and renewing, is not unknown to him. And yet, this is how he ends the poem Prithvi. And I quote, "Today I stand before you without illusion. I do not ask at your door for immortality. But if I have given true value to my small seat in a tiny segment of vast eras, then touch my brow with the sign of your clay, to be rubbed out in time by the night, in which all signs fade into the final unknown. O aloof, ruthless earth, Before I am utterly forgotten, let me place my homage at your feet. One can call it a tragic vision, but it does not lack in faith. I suppose it would be more appropriate to call it a homage to life and the world in the face of a distinct possibility that everything was perhaps rushing towards meaningless futility. Coming to Nazrul Islam, one has to acknowledge that he is the second most important poet in what can be called Rabindra Yuga or Tagore age. He is eminent both as a writer and a maker of music, a combination not to be found in any other artist other than, of course, Rabindranath Tagore himself. Unlike some other poets of his phase, Nazrul never wanted to achieve originality by trying to escape Tagorean influence at any cost, and by employing formalistic and stylistic gimmicks. Without even trying to be so, Nazrul from the very beginning was a non-Tagorean, mainly because he was essentially different in his thought and manner. With him, heart was all that mattered. It was the guide and test of his poetry. Emotion with all its glow, sincerity in all its simple charm, and an almost unlimited quality of vitality and vigor characterize his poetry. It is these qualities that have made Nazrul unique and admirable to his readers and the common man. By nature and conviction, Nazrul was a people's poet and believed all through his writing career that art is for people, even though he didn't possibly know this dictum of Lenin. He emphatically stated more than once that he did not mean to write poetry for the elite. But made as he was, he could not help being moved by the objective conditions and the human situations around. His unaffected imagination and inventiveness, his command over rhetoric, or his wit and fancy might at times have broken laws, much to the detriment of the requirements of art. But his spontaneity and passionate abandon have always been marked by a complete sincerity. A masculinity in the body of his poetry, an intensity of passion and vigor, an inventiveness in diction, a capacity for successful fusion of the Persian, Arabic, and Sanskrit Bengali words, all these are no mean achievement. His love has many subtle moods, ranging from the sensual to the spiritual. His poetry has a passionate involvement with his country, with the common man, and with the Hindu-Muslim unity. It is he who made the statement that has gone into Bengali proverb, and I quote, "Mora eki brinte duti phul, Hindu Musalman. We are two flowers from the same stem, Hindu and Muslim." Nazrul's first appearance as Vidrohi Kavi, a rebel poet, often makes us forget that Nazrul did not stop with mere rebellion. But what an appearance it was. It was 1921, year of the Saraj has reached its climax. Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das was in prison. One morning, according to his friend and roommate Muzaffar Ahmed, Nazrul was found scribbling furiously, something with a lead pencil in the late hours of the last week of December 1921. He appeared to be writing a long poem. The first thing Nazrul did next morning was to read the poem out to his friend. It was Vidrohi. Bolo Veer, Bolo Unnatamo Mashir. Declare, O brave one, declare, my head is held high. The poet took Bengal by storm. The magazine Bijoli, where the poem was first published, had to be reprinted on public demand. According to a report, Nazrul is said to have rushed with an early copy of the issue to Rabindranath's house at Jorasako to read it out to his guru in his usual gusto. And Tagore was overwhelmed by it. He gave Nazrul his blessings and good wishes for the future. This affectionate relationship Nazrul had with Tagore lasted throughout. In the year 1923, Nazrul was imprisoned for writing an allegedly seditious editorial in the magazine Dhumketu. During the imprisonment, Nazrul and his followers started a fast unto death in protest against the oppression and terror in the jails. Nazrul's condition deteriorated, but he would not yield to the request of his friends or the national leaders to end the hunger strike. Tagore was at Shillong in those days. As soon as he came to know of the hunger strike and Nazrul's condition, he sent a telegram saying, "Give up hunger strike. Our literature claims you." But the crowning event of the time for Nazrul was, however, Tagore's dedication of his newly composed song drama Basanto, Spring, to Shriman Kazi Nazrul Islam with affectionate blessings. Nazrul, who was still in jail, was beside himself with joy and gratefulness. Nothing could also be more unquestionably a national recognition for Nazrul than this act of Rabindranath, who embodied in himself the higher consciousness of the people of India. To realize its significance correctly, one has to remember that the prevailing political agitation of the time was not entirely to Tagore's taste. He had openly differed with Gandhiji on the question of non-cooperation, Chorkha, boycott of foreign goods, and shunning Western education. He was definitely not in agreement with Nazrul's rebelliousness and call for revolutionary upheavals. So his open recognition of Nazrul Islam when in jail made the people of Bengal happy, and it also made the British government look a little foolish. Anyway, Nazrul did not stop with Bidrohi. In the treasury of his national song, there is hardly anything more stirring in its tune and as evocative in its appeal as his next poem Kandari Hushiyar, with which the annual season of Krishnanagar Political Conference of 1926 opened. দুর্গমগিরি কান্তার মরু দুস্তর পারাবার লঙ্ঘিতে হবে রাত্রি নিশীতে যাত্রীরা হুঁশিয়ার. Impassable are the hills and wastelands and deserts, and impassable is the ocean. These are to be crossed in the midnight darkness. O voyagers, beware. More defiant in tone, but equally noble and rousing in effect, was the other song which was sung to inaugurate the students' conference in the same place. It begins like this: ঊর্ধ্ব গগনে বাজে মাদল, নিম্নে উথলা ধরণী তল, অরুণ প্রাতে তরুণ দল, চল রে চল রে চল রে চল. Overhead, in the sky, the drum calls. Below, the earth is astir. Ye youths of the red dawn, forward, forward, forward. These three songs, if nothing else, would make Nazrul a national poet for all times to come. Unfortunately, the rebel poet was all but dead to the world for the last 3 decades of his life. By an irony of fate, Nazrul Islam of irrepressible energy lived for 30 years in mental derangement. The heavy gloom and involuntary muteness knew no relief. But even in his tragic silence, Nazrul Islam remained the singing voice of the age of the common man. Thank you.
After listening to this talk of Nirmal Kanti Bhattacharjee, who loves scholarship so vast, so much of depth, that we got transcended to the entire gamut of Tagore and Nazrul. It's very difficult to put the entire sea in a glass of water.
Right.
It can't be done. I'm sure Rano agrees with me.
Absolutely. Yes.
We are truly educated, sir. Our world literature is enriched by these two great doyens of literature. And with you, giving us a bit of introduction. I know it was a great call given to you, but we are really thankful to you, Nirmal Kanti Bhattacharya. Now we go to the next part of the event, and that will be a song, a dance performed on the Tagore's song, the famous song of Tagore. হেমর চিত্ত পুণ্য তীর্থ জাগরে ধীরে এই ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে. What a beautiful song. And he tells that arise to the shore of India, and it is the shore of India, এই ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে. It is at this shore of India where the entire humanity shall rise. And that is the faith Tagore had in his country. And this has been reflected in so many poems by Kazi Nazrul Islam too. So let's have the presentation from the ICCR scholar Madhumita Paul on that beautiful song. She does it in a chow form, but it is a Bengali, it is a Rabindra Sangeet sung in a beautiful manner by danced by Madhumita Paul. And I request Mr. Ricardo to play the video. হেমর চিত্ত পুণ্য তীর্থ জাগরে ধীরে এই ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে. Let's watch this.
হেমর চিত্ত হেমর চিত্ত হেমর চিত্ত পুণ্য তীর্থে জাগরে ধীরে এই ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে জাগরে ধীরে হেমর চিত্ত পুণ্য তীর্থে জাগরে ধীরে এই ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে জাগরে ধীরে হেথায় দাঁড়ায় দুবাহু বাড়ায় নমি নর দেবতারে হেথায় দাঁড়ায় দুবাহু বাড়ায় নমি নর দেবতারে উদার ছন্দে পরমানন্দে বন্দন করি তাঁরে ধ্যান গম্ভীর এই যে ভূধর নদী জপমালা ধুত প্রান্তর ধ্যান গম্ভীর এই যে ভূধর নদী জপমালা ধুত প্রান্তর ধরিত্রীরে এই ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে জাগরে ধীরে জাগরে ধীরে এসো হে আর্য এসো হে আর্য এসো হে আর্য এসো অনার্য হিন্দু মুসলমান এসো এসো আজ তুমি ইংরাজ এসো এসো খ্রিস্টান হিন্দু মুসলমান এসো ব্রাহ্মণ সূচি করি মন ধরো হাত সবাকার এসো হে পতি হোক অপনীত সব অপমান ভার মার অভিষেকে এসো এসো তারা মঙ্গল ঘট হয় নিজে ভরা মার অভিষেকে এসো এসো তারা, মঙ্গল ঘাট হয় নিজে ভরা, সবার পরশে পবিত্র করা তীর্থ নীরে। আজি ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে, জাগরে ধীরে, জাগরে ধীরে। হে মোর চিত্ত, হে মোর চিত্ত, হে মোর চিত্ত পুণ্য তীর্থে জাগরে ধীরে। এই ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে, জাগরে ধীরে। হে মোর চিত্ত পুণ্য তীর্থে জাগরে ধীরে। এই ভারতের মহামানবের সাগর তীরে, জাগরে ধীরে।
With this beautiful song rendered in the Chow style by Madhumita Paul, I invite Shahnaz Ranu to speak two sentences and then we'll conclude the event.
Thank you so much, Dr. Srimoti Das, once again. And it is indeed a great pleasure on my part that we listened to the speaker who spoke highly about Rabindranath Tagore and Nazrul precisely. And we are enlightened and educated, no doubt, from his speech. And Nazrul and Rabindranath Tagore, these two eminent personalities, these two poets, are not only the poets of rebel or poets of nature, they were poets of love as well. So we rendered this message to the world. We do not want any war. We want a peaceful world for our generations to come. And thank you so much, ICCR, and thank you so much, Indian Embassy, that Bangladesh Embassy could collaborate this program to the audience. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahnaz Ranu, for your wonderful words. And I would like to conclude this event of the curtain raiser. And from today onwards, we are on the mood of celebrating the birthdays of two great sons of two great countries, and India and Bangladesh. And I would like to thank the Ambassador of India, Dr. Pankaj Sharma, Ambassador of Bangladesh, Abida Islam, and Shahnaz Ranu from the Embassy of Bangladesh for having this collaboration. And we are sure that on May 14th, we would take it ahead. So,
Right.
with this pledge, we forge ahead. Namaskar. Viva
Viva
India.
Bangladesh, yes. Viva Bangladesh, Viva India. Friendship. Yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Namaskar.
Namaskar.